Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another AFL Fantasy Fanatics Sunday night round review for round 22. We're recording live on Sunday, the 10th of August, after the completion of round 22. And I'm very, very stressed, or still coming down from being stressed for 3 hours, because that was one stressful game at the end there. But I'm your host, Bales, and you can find me at BAILSDT across the socials. And unfortunately, a lot of our co-hosts are busy tonight. But I do a very special guest. It's been a minute since we had him on one of the round reviews, but we got him back on. He's a good friend of the show, DT Lemon. Lemon, mate, how are you? How was your weekend?
Yeah, good. Thanks, mate. Thanks for having me on. It has been a while, but yeah, happy to be back and chatting fantasy. Yeah, weekend was good. Just watched a bit of footy. Had my sister's hen, so yeah, a bit of a crazy day there. But yeah, it's been a good fantasy round for me, so I'm keen to talk about it.
Yeah, beautiful, mate. Good to hear the weekend was good as well. So we'll go into our weekend recap. So, mate, what did you score? What was your round rank and where's your overall rank sitting now? Because I know you're in the mix for the top 100.
Yeah, just outside. So yeah, I scored a 23.92. I can never work out how to find the round rank, but I assume that was okay because I climbed a little bit in the rankings.
Then you go on the app, you go like round 22, and then it says the rank.
Oh, right, okay.
On the app there. That's how I normally find it before lockout's lifted.
Right, there you go. I'll learn that for next time. Yeah, overall ranking climbed a little bit up to 105, so just outside the top 100. Hoping to be able to sneak in there in the next 2 weeks, but yeah, we'll see how we go. How about you, mate?
Well, I was just about to say before we do, how many points exactly are you away from 100 spot now? It'd have to be within probably 10
you're
points
really
or something.
You're really testing me now. Let me see, 46546. It can't be very many, I think. Yeah, I was inside the top 100, today, this afternoon, and then just slowly slipping throughout the day. So, 561. Okay, looks like maybe 5 points. No, 15 points.
Yep, 15.
15 points. We'll take that.
Yep, right there. I scored a 23.82, so just behind you there with the score. So round rank of just outside 6,000, which I originally thought was going to be higher in terms of round ranking, but a few guys today got it done late in the piece, and that put me an overall rank of 2,412, so up another 294 spots, and we've cracked the top 2.5K. We got 412 spots to go for that goal of 2K that I did set a little bit ago. So hopefully we can get there before the end of the season. So we'll go to our plus and minus 3 for the week. So Lemon, we'll start with you. Plus and minus 3, who gets it?
Yeah, I think plus 3 for me has to go to Jack Sinclair. He's been a bit of a tricky hold through that middle part of the season, but I think the last 5 weeks he's going at over 110, big 146 for me. And it's funny because I say every year that he just goes on to average 102, 103. And I think his average is now back at 102. So he's just Mr. Consistent in the back line. Yeah, nice little gravy matchup there for a big ceiling score. Minus 3's got to go to Josh Dacos. He just ruined the start of my weekend. Thursday night, 64. It's just I was so down about the weekend. Luckily, a few other guys picked up his slack, but yeah, that was tough to watch. And I probably could have looped him as well. I probably could have maybe made 10, 20 points if I'd looped him. So that was a bit upsetting to see him fail on a Thursday night.
Yeah, exactly. I know exactly how you feel, mate, because back-to-back weeks we've both had Josh Dacos sort of you don't want a premium on a Thursday to get your week off and a unique premium to get your week off to a bad start. And we both had Josh Dacos this week, and we had both had Tom Green last week. So I definitely feel your pain with the Josh Dacos one. Plus 3 to me. Well, I'll tell you what, probably got to go in that. There's a few honourable mentions there that I'm sure we'll chat about through the games, but it's got to go back-to-back weeks. I'm actually giving it to him. It's the Adelaide captain, Jordan Dawson. He's, again, throughout the day, just stood up when it mattered when the Crows were looking like potentially coughing up a bad loss. And to West Coast Eagles' credit, they played very, very well. Probably the best game I've seen West Coast play all season. So definitely got to give a lot of credit to them. But it's just the fact that Jordan Dawson doesn't need the 35, 40 touches a game to put up these monsters. So, again, he had the 26 touches, but 6 marks and 14 tackles, which is a season high and I would imagine probably a career high for him as well. But like last week, 12 tackles, week before 10 tackles, just getting it done, gets his marks, and season high 147. Now averaging 111.5 for the year, so extends his lead as the M1. -3. A couple of low ones. I probably would have given it to Josh Dacos, but I'll give it to probably someone we haven't really given a huge amount of, I guess, negative to is Andrew Brayshaw, 76 points, and he's just floundering around at the moment, just not really doing a great deal. Since he scored a 136 and then a 104 against North Melbourne around 14-15, he's had 1 ton in his last, 7 games. And that one scores a 138. Everything else has been below a ton. And 76 was the lowest score from that stretch. And I believe it was his lowest score. Lowest score of the season. So, I'm sure we'll chat about him a little bit more when we get to the Freo game. But he's a frustrating and hard watch at the moment. So let's go to the all-important Content Creators Cup prelim finals. And the first one, Holmesy and Louis, the pod going head-to-head. And Holmesy, as he's done all year, gets it done once again with a 24-36, which also, importantly, moves him up to 7th overall in the rankings. So still right up there and going along quite nicely. I'm just having a look here. How far is he away? But 230 points away from first. So we'll see if Holmes can give that a good shake. But hopefully he can stay inside the top 10 and get as high as possible. Beat Louis 23-82. And Lemon, I know you're in the other prelim final, but unfortunately just fell short. How did you go?
I know, I can't believe it. Lost to Nathan, the Ober Mullets, by 13 points. So that is that's a big loss for me. Would have expected to win that one. So, I'm sure Nathan will be pretty chuffed with that. Goes into the final. Disappointing one. I think, again, Josh Dacos was unique. Although he had Lockie Ash. So, bit of a weird one there.
29. I'm sure we'll chat about him as well. But that was, a doozy, that's for sure. But, I'm seeing here, the Dunkley, the Butters, obviously you had Marshall there as well. But, Dunkley, Butters, and then, bloody Josh Dacos, unfortunately. But, mate, hopefully still get that top 100 there as well. Stu has got a super chat here and he's like, can you help me find the delete team button? And then he says Ash. So yes, we'll chat about him very, very shortly. But yes, not going along. He didn't go too well today. Unfortunately, that's putting it lightly for all of his owners. But let's get stuck into the games and go through, and we'll start all the way back on Thursday night. And that was Hawthorn defeating Collingwood by 64 points at the MCG. So big win there for Hawthorn. Not hugely fantasy relevant, but probably a good thing because there weren't too many big scores. So Lloyd Meek, top score, the 112. A lot of people would have moved off in the last few weeks, but 112, annoying score after trading with 3 goals as well. So that's an interesting one there. Sicily, probably one to put on the black book maybe for next year. He's looking pretty good at the moment. 102 was solid in defence. And then Impey was the only other ton there, along with a few 90s from Amon, Newcomb. And Dylan Moore with a 91. Was on 67 at halftime, so slightly disappointing, but 91 you take in the forward line. Nick Dacos with an 88. I think we heard during the week that he was a bit managed, a bit sore, but 88 was a bit disappointing there. So another disappointing score for Nick Dacos. I think that's back-to-back poor ones for him. And then Josh Dacos, Lemons, obviously you mentioned him about your -3. I think the tough thing for Dacos owners was the fact that Jeremy Howard got concussed very early. He was in the midfield. But the only thing I didn't understand, Lemon, I want to get your thoughts on it, is I get he's an All-Australian wingman, and we had this chat with Taser on Friday, but they're putting guys like Sidebottom, Pendlebury, Ned Long, Tom Mitchell, all in ahead of Josh Dacos. So he helped them win the game against Gold Coast and put up a monster last quarter. Is this any cause for concern from you, or do you just think this was just a one-off game? They were just trying a few things. He's going to go back to that mid or even half-back role, and he's got, Adelaide and then Melbourne. He should be fine to finish out the year.
Yeah, it was a weird game. I think the promising thing for Dacos owners, particularly Josh Dacos owners, is that they got pumped. They lost by 10 goals. They're going to have to change something, and that midfield mix wasn't working. Having Mitchell and Long in there doesn't work, and it means that guys like Nick Dacos, Josh Dacos aren't around the ball. So I think they'll change something. I wouldn't be surprised if Mitchell or Long aren't in the team next week. And hopefully that means that Dacos is back on the inside, or like worst case scenario, back at halfback flank. Because we didn't get him for the wing time. We got him for the defense time, or maybe some midfield time as well.
Yep, exactly. That was what was the frustrating part about him being on the wing, because we certainly didn't buy into a wingman there. And pretty much besides that, that was about it. If anyone still had Ned Long out there with all the carnage, then he just unfortunately was the starting sub, but came on early, but still only put up a 38. So I think his spot on the side could be a bit under jeopardy, because he hasn't done a huge amount over the last few weeks. Let's move over to Friday night footy, and Geelong beating Essendon by 44 points. And Lemon, luxury trade season, Zach Merritt, 132.
I know it's always the way it happens. I think I traded him last week just before his poorer score, and I felt pretty good about that. But now it goes 130, and all of a sudden I've missed out on a 105 average from a midfielder. So it's the way it works. Unfortunately, he fought through that tag really well. He just played awesome, tackled really well. Looks great, but I think there's a story out that he's maybe fractured his wrist or something. So it's pretty unlucky for owners, because you held through. You avoided the really hard tag, and now he's going to probably be a trade. So it's a bit unfortunate there.
Yeah, I think they said they'll miss this week, and they play Friday night, which is the first game. So we don't have any Thursday night footy this week, obviously, with AFLW kicking off on Thursday. So looking very much forward to that. Next on the list was Bailey Smith with a 120, which was a good score. I feel like I'm not going to complain 120. You never complain with a 120 as a VC, but when you're trying to get as many points, I feel like he left some points on the table, and he could have gone a 140, but unfortunately, but it's still 120. Great score when there were other poor performances out there. So I'm not complaining with 120 before anyone starts having to go at me. Just saying, I want to get greedy. I'm trying to make as much rank as possible, and I needed a 150. But 120, still very, very happy with that one. Jeremy Cameron got there. He went so long in the game, Lemon, for like not scoring, and then he would just kick 2 goals in a couple of minutes, and then he would put on 30, 40 points. With the Sydney matchup this week, if you've got him as, say, your F6, and you've got the ability to loop against Sydney, do you think that that's the play? And for those non-owners as well, would you just leave Cameron for a week and then bring him in for the final game of the season?
Yeah, I think he's definitely one that you'd want to loop against Sydney. I think they're really quite tough against key forwards. So I'd definitely be trying to loop him, or maybe even just benching him for the week. You didn't pick him up for the Sydney matchup, and I almost certainly wouldn't trade into him for the Sydney matchup, because I think that's just asking for pain. If you want him in round 24, you can bring him in round 24.
Yeah. No, good call. Sean Manor as well with a 99. He's just a very good player. Put up a solid score there, along with Brian Myers, who had, I think he had first quarter and third quarter were great. Second and fourth quarter were combined like 27 points. I think he had 14 and 13 points. So slightly disappointed that he did that. But forward line, 96 is still pretty good. But we were probably hoping for at least a ton with a 39-point first quarter. Going through a list, Max Holmes, really disappointing, Lemon. Probably could have been someone that could have gotten our -3s, but I'm sure we got no worries about him. Just a poor game. And got quite unlucky. Gave a couple of free kicks away that were probably touch and go, and they were with tackles or when he was going to get a kick. So that could have been 20 points difference and could have been a 115, 120. So if you had the VC on him, hopefully you went into Nasir or someone like a Jordan Dawson and put up and got a good score there. Tom Stewart with a 73, just not getting it done. He was on a good score at 3-quarter time, had a pretty quiet last quarter there as well. And I believe that was probably it from that game. So we'll move over to Saturday. First game with St Kilda and Richmond. Close game for a lot of it. And St Kilda just getting the job done by 4 points. And as you mentioned, Lemon, your +3. Jack Sinclair with a 146. The only flag I would say, Lemon, I'm interested to get your thoughts, is this week against Essendon. Great matchup. Do you think that Guelphy goes to him?
I mean, to Sinclair, I'm not sure he is the most sort of damaging player for St Kilda. So I think if anyone gets attention, it's probably going to be Wanganeen Miller. I'm not sure they'll even tag because, St Kilda, Wanganeen Miller is a pretty tough matchup for a lot of players. He'll push forward. He probably was pushing forward a little bit more than I expected, but that's because he's kicking goals at the moment. So I wouldn't be too worried about a Sinclair tag. If it happens, it'll hurt for sure. But yeah, if I was playing St Kilda, I mean, you see what, he had 146 DTs. They only won by a goal against Richmond. So they play a very fantasy friendly game, St Kilda, but it doesn't necessarily, put them in a position to win.
Yeah. And I think that the good thing about Sinclair and Nasir is that if they're getting attention, they'll go in the midfield or they'll go in defence or they'll go somewhere else.
Yeah.
So like Sinclair went in the midfield for a few CBAs in the last quarter. I would imagine that if he's being tagged and having no impact, he'll go into the midfield. So I agree. I'm not too concerned. And I still think he's a good target to end off the year. How about Cal Wilkie? That would have won a few people some draft prelims and semi-finals there with a 136. He was very, very good. Rowan Marshall, 135, putting together a good couple of weeks. Obviously, he's got great matchups, and he's got Essendon again, and then he goes into GWS. So a couple of really good matchups for Marshall. I think he is a very good target to look at. Windhager was on 100 at halftime as well, ended with the 133, so another draft one there. Hugh Garcia also with a ton, along with McRae and Steele. And then obviously Nasai, Wanganeen, Mellera. A few people were a bit nervous early. It wasn't really having much impact. Richmond paying him a bit of close attention, but as the game went on, he just got into the game and then went a bit unchecked in the last half and got to a pretty good score in the end with a 118. Just with the St Kilda midfield, Lemon, I don't know if you watched too much this game. Obviously, I know you were out and about yesterday, but Jack McRae obviously turned back up to 14 CBAs, which was equal first for midfielders for St Kilda. They had him and Garcia were 14. Jack Steele, Hall, Wanganeen, Miller were 6, and then Sinclair 5, and a few others had like 4, 3, and whatever. So are you back maybe on a little bit on Jack McRae? Only 65% toe again, which obviously is a concern. He's got Essendon this week. So where do you sit? Is he a target to bring in? Did you just not worry about it with the low tog and St Kilda changing everything? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's a tricky one. Yeah, as you said, 65% time on ground's really gross. He started the game on the bench, had a lot of bench stints. Looks like, Garcia is ahead of him in the sort of midfield priority. So that worries me a little bit. Maybe they're sort of managing him. Maybe he's a bit sore. Maybe they just don't, they don't see a future. They don't see a need to put minutes into him. Yeah, I probably still would be happy to trade in, depending on what other options you have. The forward line's pretty tricky, but yeah, with that kind of time on ground, he's not going to put up a big 140, 150 because he's just not out there long enough to do it. So that's what you really want probably in the last 2 weeks. You want to target someone with a bit of ceiling and who can go at 120, 130 for 2 weeks. And I don't think he's going to do that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's him and Garcia's roles have pretty much flipped, right? Is that Garcia was the one that was low game time earlier in the year, but now Garcia was 81%, McRae 65%. So it seems like that's just completely flipped. They've just done that and switched those two around. So yeah, bit interesting if you trade in him or not in the forward line. Jack Ross with a 94, so good for any of those that are still going in the forward line. Mason Wood, I know Jordy's not too happy. Traded him out this week and he puts up a 92 on his head because St Kilda decided to take a million marks in this game. A few draft players here that had underwhelming scores. Taranto 76, another quiet day for him coming back from injury. Hugh Boxer, if anyone had him as like emergency cover for anyone that was out, 74, you take that if he was in your team there. And and Matthias Philippo, geez, 18 points. I know he's playing, come back from a pretty horrid year with a lot of injuries. Only played the 70% time on ground, -4 meters gained. So shout to Jake, who I know loves the meters gained stat, -4. That's an interesting one for an entire game. But Philippo, probably someone to put in the black book for next year. But a few people might be scarred over the last couple of years. So who knows? Maybe people just go, no, I'm not doing it to myself again. But hopefully you can get fit and have a good year next year. Moving up to the Gabba, and a big upset this one here. Brisbane going down to Sydney by 2 points at the Gabba. Sydney are probably going to ruin a few teams in this back end of the year. And Josh Dunkley, Lemon, obviously you unfortunately don't have him, and he's been someone that I know you talked about, bloody Tom Green, making that decision, and I made the exact same decision. But yeah, Josh Dunkley, what are your thoughts? You looking at targeting him over the last 2 weeks?
Yeah, it really hurts, particularly with Neil going out. I think he's now basically that top guy in the midfield, along with maybe Will Ashcroft and McCluggage. So, yeah, I think he's going to be good the next 2 weeks. He's the sort of guy it's almost matchup proof. He actually plays better in some of the tougher matchups, I think. So it can be a bit misleading if you look at the fixture. Just looks like he's in unreal form at the moment, tackling, marking, getting touches, kicking goals. So he's definitely going to be one that I'll consider this week. And if you can get to him, I think it's probably a pretty safe bet this week.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I totally agree. He was on 94 points at halftime as well. So going along very nicely. Just a very, very good player. Josh Dunkley. Will Ashcroft, 118. Obviously someone that will bring in a number of times in their fantasy teams in the future. So if you still got him or in draft, be happy with that. Isaac Heaney, 114 with the flu game. Said he was as crook as a dog on Saturday morning and still played. Don't know how he does it, to be honest. 5 goals and 23 disposals. Pretty bloody good effort from Isaac Heaney, one of the best players in the competition for a reason. McCluggage with a 112 there. Dane Zorko, Lemon, 103. Look pretty good in this game. Obviously, we know that he's probably going to be managing that Liz Frank injury probably for the remainder of the year. Is that just then a no, you're not going anywhere near, or the fact that he's now dropped a bit in price is going to be probably low 900s? Is there any interest from you on Dane Zorko?
I think with the other options we have in defence, I'd be happy to look elsewhere. That injury just scares me. If something happens or he gets a knock or whatever it is, he's maybe they're up by a few goals and they can sub him out. I wouldn't have any confidence that he's going to play good game time for the next 2 weeks. In defense, we just have so many good options. I think you can probably find someone else who's a bit safer with similar kind of scoring potential.
Yeah, I think I agree as well. Like we've seen with you jump into someone with a niggle like Jack Steele, and then he puts up poor score after poor score. And I know that's the worst case scenario, but I'd just probably have a bit of a hesitancy going there as well. Levi Ashcroft put up his second career ton with exactly 100 points there. So going to be certainly in the mix for the rising star. Chad Warner with a 94. Pretty good score from a forward. And Chad's been okay since the mid-season buy. Hasn't gone below 70. Just hasn't put up any, has only put up the 1 ton. But been fairly consistent, though, and one of the better forward options, I guess, that we've got. Errol Goulden with a 93. Bit of a lower one here, but I think he'll be a prime target now. He's going to be near that $1 million mark and has Geelong and then West Coast. So I think he'll be a decent target in the midfield. Unfortunately, Brodie Grundy got a heavy hit late in the game. We heard from Mitch Cleary post-game that he passed his HIA and everything was all good, but obviously we'll just have to keep our ear to the ground in terms of is there any delayed concussion. We know that can happen, so hopefully the Ruck Pig's okay and can take his place in the game next week, because obviously he's been outstanding, but again 0 tackles, so hopefully he can lay a few cuddles next week in the game. Callum Mills 73, disappointing after being on 47 at 3/4 time. For those that have got Mills, Lemon, he now goes Geelong and then West Coast to finish. Is he someone that you'd like to get up? Is he someone that can be maybe a 23rd premium? Where do you sit with Callum Mills? Because he's been fairly good. He's just had a couple of those 70s and a couple of 60s sort of sporadically since the bye.
Yeah, I think it's really tricky this time of year. We're very much in luxury season. So you might only get a 10, 15 point upgrade week to week, and that's something you're looking to do. He's definitely someone I'd consider trading. I think a lot of teams might have bigger issues. If you can loop him and you can, run that 23rd, I'd definitely love to do that, or maybe even have a look at his score and then decide if you take it or if you trade into someone else. It's a tricky one. There's probably, every team's probably got 4, 5, 6 guys they can trade. You're only going to be able to move on a few of them. So you've just got to sort of pick your poison a little bit and, maybe look at who you can actually bring in. Do you want to bring in a defender, or maybe you want to bring in someone in a different line?
Yeah, exactly. Someone that I'm potentially considering trading out this week, but I do have a forward in my midfield getting that 23rd premium, so I might just go up and have Callum Mills on the bench and loop him with maybe a mid and get maybe a defender mid in the side this week. And also just a shout out to Tom Duday, who played his first game for Brisbane after multiple injuries. Obviously, good friend of the fantasy community and loves his fantasy. So good to see him back and playing some footy. It was good to see. Moving to Saturday nights, had a couple of games here. So we'll start off with Carlton and Gold Coast, with Gold Coast getting the job done by 19 points at Marvel Stadium. Jared Witt's big score there with a 118. Matt Rao with a 116. Is it, Lemon just keeps getting it done? Just keeps getting it done. Is it too expensive now to pay for Rao? He's going to be like 1.14, 1.15, I think.
Oh, it's a lot to pay. But if you're ever going to pay that much, the last 2 weeks is definitely the time to do it. If you've got cash in the bank after next week, it doesn't do anything for you. So if you do the math and you can afford him and it's not going to impact your trades next week, be happy to bring him in. But again, we're only looking for someone to score for you for 2 weeks. So, you might be able to pay top dollar and get Matt Rowell. You might be able to pay a little bit cheaper and get someone who does similar scoring. And then that gives you a bit more cash to play with next week. It's a tricky one, though. He just looks amazing at the moment. I think we've all been waiting for this to happen. And, just our luck that he sort of does it maybe mid-season and it takes us some time to actually, cotton onto it.
Yep, except for one man, and that was Jake from Hat Chat. So again, shout out to him. It's a great trade for bringing him in the mid-season as well, or during the buys. Had 4 marks, so that was good to see him have a few extra marks there as well. Matty Rao. Cooper Law with a 112. More mentioning him just because he's doing tagging jobs, and he kept Noah Anderson to a 65 and kept him well held. So for those Zach Butters owners, that will be going his way this week. So we'll talk about Zach Butters very, very shortly because he was very good against Freo. Fiorini with an 87. Is it just, I know he's been good for those coaches that jumped on Lemon. He's got some really good scores and whatever, but is it just time now to probably just upgrade him to one of those big dog mids if you've got the luxury to?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, his last, 5, 6, 7 games, really since his bye, he's been up around that sort of 95, 100 average, which is, you could realistically, you could run that the rest of the year. The problem is he's got GWS and Port in the next 2. So tough matchups. He's probably already someone you're considering trading out. I think, just with those matchups, you probably bump him up the list and try and move him on before you get that stinker score, because we know he's the kind of guy that can score really well some weeks, but he's definitely, if he puts up a 50, I wouldn't be surprised. So I'd want to try and avoid that.
Yeah. Just in your comment in here from Sean in the live chat saying, lost 135 points, went Merritt and Butters to Whitfield and Ash and still went up to rank 197. I would have been ranked 113 if I did my other trade option. Can't believe this round I decided to bring in Ash. He's been good all year. Yes, mate. No, sorry about that. And I remember, Sean, you asking that exact question on Friday, and I thought that Merritt and Butters out to Whitfield and Ash was a good play. Yeah, sorry, mate. Condolences for that one. Fantasy is a very, very cruel game, that is for sure. John Noble with an 86 as well. George Hewitt, 79. So a couple of lower scores there. And yeah, Noah Anderson with a 65, a low score there, but I'm sure he'll bounce back next week. And I reckon that was probably it from that one as well. So I'll move over to the Port and Freo game. A good game of footy, this one. 6-point winners for Freo with the big moose, big Alex Pearce with a big mark at the end and a goal. Wouldn't have thought he was going to be the one to kick the goal, but congrats to him. But Zach Butters, 122, rewarding those owners that held on to win Lemon. But obviously, as I mentioned there, Cooper Lord's been doing some jobs, and Port have got Carlton next week. It's tricky, right? Because they've got Carlton next week, then they go Gold Coast, Port does, and the last round. So he goes tag and then really good matchup. Is this a perfect case of if you've got the ability to loot Butters this week, because then you hold him for that round 24 game against Gold Coast? And I guess if you don't have a 23rd premium, is this maybe you trade off of Butters just to get out of that low score?
Yeah, it's tricky. I mean, if you trade off this week, then you lose him for the Gold Coast matchup as well. So it's a really, really hard one. Obviously, you'd love to get a look at it, Loop. I think they do play early. No, that's round 24. So I'm not sure when Port play. Wouldn't be early this week. It's a really tough one. I mean, we saw with Mer on the weekend that. Oh, you go.
Sorry, they play first game on the Saturday, 12:50, 1:20, Eastern, and then they play on the Friday night of round 24.
Yeah,
so you probably get a look at those.
Yeah, you won't need to look in round 24 because Gold Coast is quite a good matchup and they don't tag. So it's like, like Merritt on the weekend, we all thought he was going to have a terrible game and he broke through the tag. And if you can break a tag, it's actually a really great result because all of a sudden you got Merritt going 1-on-1 with a Mullen who's, losing the battle, and he's just got to keep going back to him, and Merritt's just absolutely taking him to the cleaners. So it's a tricky one. You might just want to cop the pain this week, hold Butters, and then hope that he pays you back against Gold Coast for the last round. Maybe a bit of junk there, and he just puts up a big score for you and makes up for maybe a bit of a poorer score this week.
Yep, agreed. Alira 118, 17 marks was good, and he still was battling on with one leg. So credit to him for continuing playing and putting out a pretty good performance there for any draft coach that got him there. Farrell 105. Luke Jackson, shout out to Jordy, his favourite, for one of his favourite players, the Unicorn, 104. Yep, very, very good from him. Connor Rosey, 103. It's always nice, Lemon, when you see that little +4 after that. Like, it was on 99 when the game finished, and that little +4 at the end after when they did the adjustments to get to a 103. Did you watch much of this game? Because it was a different role for Rosie. Played a fair bit of midfield, 22 CBAs, only behind Butters there, and went forward late, was cramping late, which is probably a bit expected. Just couldn't get the words out there because he had a couple of weeks off. So what did you make of Rosie and that change in role? Because he'd been scoring well in the back line. He still put up a good score, but he's fine for you for the rest of the year?
Yeah, I think if you've got Rosie, you're not touching him. You're just hoping he can keep fronting up, get through these injuries, and put up some good scores. I mean, Porter so decimated at the moment. I think him moving around is probably just due to his flexibility more than anything. You know, we don't have a full squad to pick from, and he's the guy that can play midfield, can play maybe even a high half forward. He can play in defence. So I suspect that was more for team balance than anything. But he scores anywhere on the ground. Even if he's in the forward line, he's still he'd probably still be a 90+ scorer. So I'd be pretty comfortable him playing in any role.
Yep, agreed. I'll be holding on to him as well. And shout out to Boki, 103. Hopefully, but potentially his last fantasy ton that we'll get. Obviously, because he's only got the 2 games left. So obviously one of Port's best ever players, or potentially their best ever player. Absolute legend there. But 103 was good from him. Caleb Sarong with a 93, played well, but unfortunately just 2. It's funny though, like Lem, we talk about all these players that in terms of fantasy, right? So Connor Rosey, 19 disposals, but because he kicked 2 goals, 7 marks, 6 tails, he got the 103. But Sarong scores 10 points less, and he has 9 more touches. So I guess there's that difference between some fantasy players game to game, but also just from season to season as well. So 93, not too bad from Sarong there. But we have to talk about Andrew Brayshaw, Lemon. 76, 1 ton, as I said, in his last 7, just not getting it done at all. And he's really clogging up at the moment a prime midfield spot. But they've got 2 important games. Obviously, Brisbane's not easy, but this is potentially top 8, top 4 shaping. And then they go the Dogs in the last game. Do you sort of think that Brayshaw's going to step up in those games? But what do you make of him? Because he's been very frustrating for coaches.
Yeah, he's a really tough owner at the moment. He's someone I flagged to actually trade out of my side, a few weeks ago, and I just never even considered it because of all the injuries and carnage we had. But his run's been really, really tricky, and it has really shown, since his bye, he's been really pretty average. It's going to be an interesting one because they've got everything to play for, but they've got 2 pretty tricky matchups in Brisbane and Bulldogs. They can be restrictive when they play well. So again, it's a luxury trade. If that's your biggest issue, then I envy you. I think I've got bigger ways, bigger priorities to upgrade my team. But I wouldn't blame you for wanting to trade him out either.
Yeah, I agree. I think if you can trade him, I'd look at doing that as well. But it could also be in that you maybe loop him if you've got that 23rd Premier, because he's someone's got a ceiling, just hasn't shown it, or has rarely shown it for the last couple of months there. And yeah, Jordan Clark, unfortunately, 61, 0 marks there as well. And they've got a couple of tricky games. So maybe that's a potential trade for those coach. I know Holmes, I think, jumped on him, and also Jordy. So maybe that's something that they look at, or does he may become a 23rd Primo potentially on the bench there? Moving over to the Sunday games. But as always, the podcast today and all season has been sponsored by our good friends at Game Day Squad. And we've got 2 big sports on the horizon on the Game Day Squad platform. Obviously, the Premier League starts this upcoming weekend, along with the AFLW that starts on Thursday night, which a lot of us are keen for. So if you haven't signed up to Game Day Squad yet, want to jump in, obviously that's not the only sports they do. There's plenty of other sports. They'll have obviously the big bash later in the year, the NBL, then they'll have the IPL next year, and obviously they'll have fantasy finals for both the NRL and obviously the AFL. So if you want to get in amongst the action for all that, use the code BAILSDT at sign up and you get yourself some extra packs that normally you pay for, but you get them absolutely free just by using the code at sign up. And Game Day Squad, the best thing about it is it is free to play. You don't have to pay. You can, but you don't have to. So that is the best thing about it. So make sure you head to gamedaysquad.com.au and use the code BAILSDT at sign up. Let's move to GWS and North Melbourne. So big win for the Giants there by 54 points. And Toby Green, like he does in some of these games, 128, a big score there, 3 goals, 3. Finn Callahan, so if you did jump onto him, you'd be very happy with that with a 124. Luke Parker, 116. Was very, very close to trading him this week. I ended up holding him and trading McCarthy out instead as that. So I had that 23rd premium. And when Mills decided to put up a 73, I thought, let's play Parker. And 116 was certainly more than what I expected. I believe that was a season high for him. I had the 20 CBAs as well behind Sheasel, Wardlaw, and LDU. So, yep, I'll be looking forward to hopefully him putting up a couple of good scores to end the year. Harry Sheasel, Lemon, so 108. His role's completely changed. He's very much a forward role in that mid part of the year when he moved from defence back forward again. But it's now very much a midfield role. So he had the third most CBAs, 1 behind Wardlaw and a few behind LDU. For those coaches that don't have him, probably not many. Is he someone that you'd be trying to make sure you get into your team?
Yeah, I think he's a pretty clear, top 6 defender or close to. So he's definitely a guy. If you don't have, you need to put him on the list and consider him. The role with him is weird. I think North is still sort of trying a few things. He's floating between that half forward and midfield. But I think the main thing is he just looks great. He gets really deep. Gets a few +6s in. The defensive 50. He's everywhere. Sort of follows the ball, gets some tackles as well. So. Yeah, I think guys like that, same with Rosie. It doesn't really matter where they play, they're going to hunt the ball. They're going to score well for you. So I definitely want him in my side probably before the end of the year.
Yeah, and I think this is a week that if you don't have him, hello, Jordy, I know you don't have him. Richmond this week, prime matchup. I think that could be a week you try and jump on. So I like Sheasel as a trade. If you don't have him, Tom Green, what more is there else to say, Lemon? Because we've owned him for the exact same time. And you knew my thoughts on the night when we caught up after you played a bit of music there. And he had a massive score, last quarter to save it. 95 against North Melbourne. It's okay. You take a 95. But again, it's not what we're after. But he goes Gold Coast now. Do we just have to hold because of the matchup? Or again, is it just a case of, well, if you've got luxury to, you can trade him out?
Yeah, I think it's a really frustrating one. His role's great. I mean, the role on paper is great. He's in the midfield. He's around the ball. He just doesn't look interested half the time. He's there sort of waving his arms around. I saw today, a few tackles that he just basically let the guy go. It looked like he wanted them to get the ball forward. So I don't know what's going on with him. Maybe he's just sort of coasting through the end of the year. Maybe he's carrying something. Yeah, I couldn't trade him before a Gold Coast matchup, I think. If you're going to trade him, it would be before round 24's matchup. On paper, he should be capable of a 140. It's just not happening. It's not clicking for him for some reason. So I'm hoping it's just a form slump. But yeah, it's tough watching. Just if you're an owner, just don't watch GWS games because he is nowhere.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Finn Callahan is, again, I thought it'd be a good thing him being in, but it's probably gone the other way. It's been a bad thing because Finn Callahan's dominating at the moment and they're just getting the ball forward and Tom Green's sort of been left in the middle. Again, not really doing much. And yeah, it's just very, very frustrating. I did see those as well when he had a few tackles and just let them go. And it's not even the Tom Green we've been accustomed to either because we know he's not a huge marker or tackle the ball, but he's still been able to get those mid to high 30 disposal gains. But again, just another 25 touches. And as you said, probably coasting along a little bit. So certainly been very, very frustrating. And I'm not sure I'll be bringing Tom Green back into my fantasy side at least any time in the next few years, unless he gets very, very cheap because every man's got his price. Whitfield with 91, so not too bad. Colin McKercher, 93. So again, playing well in this role. Could you bring him back in, Lemon, if you traded? Because he's got Richmond now. He goes Richmond and then Adelaide. But this role, he just gets so much of the ball. Defender mid could be that 23rd premium on the bench. Is there any interest bringing him back in? Or do you think if you traded, you let it go, you bring someone else in? If you've got him, you just hold?
Yeah, I mean, that Richmond matchup is pretty juicy. So if you do bring him back in, you're going to get a big score this week. But Adelaide round 24, again, it might cancel it out. So we've got 2 weeks left. If you bring a guy in for one good game and then he has a bad game, might average out to a 90, 100 anyway. So there might be better options. I I sort of tell people all the time, I wouldn't bring someone in just for a week and then trade them out next week. I think you've probably got good options to trade out next week already. So if it was me and you're bringing in McKercher, you've got to think that he's a good option for the next 2 weeks, combined. So that makes it a bit trickier. I mean, if you got off him, you got off him for a reason. You probably just find someone else, find a more sort of top premium, because he's still pretty young and he's still not absolutely smashing scores. He's just going that sort of 95-100 kind of range.
Yep. Good shout there. LDU 84. I feel like he might be someone that we may consider next year because he's had a few early injuries, and I think he'd be priced a fair bit cheaper than what I think he'd be priced in the low 80s. So maybe someone to put down the black book, could go in the 90s. Maybe that might be a bit of value. So someone to watch, I guess, the rest of the year. Tristan Cherry, though, geez, that's been a pretty poor year by Tristan. I know he's had his injury issues, and again, he comes into a game against Briggs, which you think's a good matchup, but again, 0 marks. The tackles were there in terms of 7, but not much of the ball. Sort of just been a frustrating year, and I guess for fantasy next year, it'll be interesting to see if people start, because he'll be cheaper than what he was priced at this year, but just not getting it done like he was at the back part of last year. Caleb Daniel Lemon, 70. I guess a lot of forwards went 70 again this week. They pretty much went 70 or 100 is pretty much what I saw a lot this week. But the Richmond matchup, would that be a reason if you've got Caleb Daniel? Me as an owner, and I don't know if you've still got Caleb Daniel or not, but I've been wanting to trade him out, I feel like, for the better part of probably 2-3 months, but he's just stayed around. Did you just keep him now with this Richmond matchup?
Yeah, I think if you own him, I basically this year I've had a rule: I don't trade anyone before a good matchup, and Richmond in particular. Any position you just don't trade before they play Richmond. You take the score from Richmond, and then you can move them on if you want. The trick is just to sort of forget that good score, or remember what they were doing before they played Richmond. So, yeah, I'd be happy to just take one more score from him, and then maybe he's a great example of a guy that you get rid of before round 24. Because I don't think he's going to score well then. Could you bring him in? It seems a bit sort of circular there. There's probably better options for 2 weeks.
Yeah, I wouldn't be bringing him in. That's for damn sure. Being a Caleb Daniel owner for all the year, it's certainly a hard watch at times. But yeah, I agree. I think you can't trade him before the Richmond game. So I'll be holding for an extra week. And the last, but certainly not least, Lockie Ash. What on earth was that, Lemon? 29 points. I wouldn't be shocked, because when we see games like this, we saw Kennedy a few weeks ago, right, with a 30. I wouldn't be shocked if he was sick. He set off the last 19 minutes on the bench. Lem, what do owners do with him? And I guess if you're a non-owner, you're probably not looking at him at least this week. You might bring him in against Gold Coast if he puts up a good score, but what do owners do? Is it just a fat case of it's poor score, he's been good, you probably think something was up and you just hold? Because it's 29, certainly not acceptable. When you look at Isaac Heaney, who, if Ash was sick, put up a 114, kicked 5 goals. There's obviously a difference, right? But what are your thoughts with Ash? Because that was very stinky.
Yeah, I feel for owners out there. He's been one of the best picks of the year, I think. So, almost any time you got on, it was a great pick. Until this week, 74% tog's really low for him. So I suspect something was up. Maybe he had the flu. Maybe he rolled an ankle during the week or something random. It actually looked okay. Like, I think there was talk he was maybe getting a bit of attention from Constantine. I saw him open a few times, and GWS were just kicking down the line instead of going to him with a switch. So I still think he's probably he's probably fine. I might even consider trading into him, to be honest. Maybe this week, maybe next week. But yeah, I think you've just got to hope that was a blemish. Players don't forget how to football in 1 week. He'll bounce back, and you just have to scroll back through his scores for the whole year. And this is definitely the outlier. So yeah, I think you just got to hope that that's the case, and he, whatever it is, that he can get over it in a week.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's an outlier. He's had 2 scores all year besides this week that were below 89. So just been consistent. He's only had one. Before this week, he only had 1 score under a ton since round 9. And that was that poor 165 against Sydney. And then, this week was just, I think it was an outlier. So I'm probably looking at bringing him in, not this week, probably the week after, because he was such a high break even. But I think he'll be someone to consider in the last game against St Kilda. Moving over to Melbourne and the Dogs, a close game this one. Dogs getting the job done by 6 points over Melbourne at the MCG. Libber getting the job done for his probably draft owners, maybe a couple of classic owners there with a 125. Big Gorney, 121. No surprise, he loves playing against Tim English, shows he's just a very good player. Another good score, along with the Bont, who I know Lemon has been an owner for a couple of weeks. That was a very good score from him. Ed Richards with a 110 as well. English with a 106 in a tough matchup. So still good to see that he put up a pretty good score against Matt Scorn. And then Matt Kennedy with a 102. So again, a very good score as a forward. Cozzy Pickett, 91. Any interest, Lemon, in the forward line? Obviously, we talked about forward lines tricky, but Cozzy keeps getting it done at the moment and had another decent game again today. I'm just having a look at CBAs. His CBAs were down a little bit compared to what they've been, but they were still quite up there. Any interest from you as a forward?
Oh, look, he's been really good since his bye. So he's, I don't know, he's going at 90 or something. So look, that's great. And as a forward, you take that, but I don't see him putting up ceiling scores against Hawthorn and Collingwood. I think that's going to be a tougher matchup. He looks incredible, and he might be one to note for next year. But I'd want some juicier matchups to bring in Cozzy Pickett now. If you already have him, then I tip my hat to you. That's an incredible trade in there, because he just looks incredible. Like, he looks like one of their best. That's probably their best midfielder at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. Just getting it done and looking like a very, very good player. Bailey Dale, the 90 as well. Solid score, but again, 30 touches to only get a 90. Again, and he had 21 kicks. Like, he must, sure, I don't exactly know if he gave away a lot of free kicks, but I dare say he might have given away a couple. Only 3 marks and no tackles, which he doesn't really tackle much anyway, but surely he must have given away a few free kicks, didn't he? I'm just having a look here. No, didn't give away any. Just had a 90 with 30 touches. So slightly unders there, but 90, you take that at least. Krish Petrarca, 71, Lemon. His role was even more forward than what it has been. Only the 10 CBAs, and I think that a few of them actually came in the last quarter. So he had 6 CBAs of his 10 the last quarter. They got 2 tough matchups, Hawthorn, Collingwood. Is this just, if you can trade him out, you're probably best to trade him out just because of all the changing scenario around Melbourne for the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, it's really horrible to see. You know, he's playing a lot forward. And because Melbourne just aren't that good at the moment, it's not productive forward time. It's, he gets missed on kicks. He's not kicking as many goals. I think he still had 1 goal today, but he's the kind of guy that needs an Isaac Heaney kind of 4 or 5 goal game as a forward to put up those big scores. At the moment, he's lucky to kick, 1 or 2. So yeah, I benched him this week. He was my 23rd this week, and I was pretty happy to see that after his poor start. I'd be happy to move him on if you can, because I just can't see him putting up those big games. They don't have anything to play for. There's a good chance he might not even be there next year. So, he's not going to absolutely bust his ass to put up a good fantasy score for you. I just can't see that happening.
Yeah, he's someone that's definitely on the chopping block for me this week, particularly with a couple of trickier matchups to come. Sam Darcy, 71. Obviously a little bit unders from what people were hoping, but he goes West Coast this week, so you're not moving out on him. And he's been pretty good. Bar that 150, that 1 score of 56 he had against the Dogs in that really bad conditions in terms of the ground. I believe that was about it. Bustling got subbed out on 29, so thanks, Bebo, for subbing him out, but I'm sure that didn't affect too many people anyway. And I moved to the last game. As I said before, very, very nervous with this one here, but the Crows getting the job done by 9 points. Just glad they got the 4 points in the end. That's all I'm happy about. But Jordan Dawson, Lemon, he's been the best, probably one of the best picks of the year, just because he was priced in the sort of, I think it's like 103, 104 area, and he's been the M1 and been very, very good this year. For those few coaches that don't have him in their side, is it just jump on him, just get him for the last 2 weeks, because he just keeps getting it done. He goes Collingwood, who he loves to play, and then North Melbourne. So thoughts on Jordan Dawson?
Yeah, I mean, he's really one of the sort of lock-in Uber premiums, I guess, at the moment. M1 and just an awesome captain option. Tackles, marks, he can really do it in any sort of matchup. So I think, he's one of those guys that I sort of penciled in after the buys. I was like, I just have to get this guy into my team ASAP. If you don't have him, it's not too late. You can still get him for the last 2 weeks. And he's just, pretty safe option. His bad games are still pretty good. And his good games like this, he can put up 140s, 150s pretty easily. So, yeah, I'd definitely be happy to get on board if you're not already.
Yeah. Agreed. And hopefully another 3 Brownlow votes for him this week. Or they might go to his partner in crime in the midfield in this game, Isaac Rankin. There was certainly a half, that's for sure. First quarter, he had 9 points, only had the 2 touches. And then the second quarter was even worse, only the 1 disposal when only 7 points. And that was from a holding the ball that he got, and that was it. But second quarter, he turned it around, 58-point third quarter and 33-point last quarter. And Lemon, this is why we started. A lot of people started him or brought him in early in the year. When he plays midfield, he can score very, very well. But the problem is it doesn't happen very often. But with the Crows needing him, when the midfield played really well in there, is there any interest going back to him in the forward line? Or is it just if you've got him, you probably hold now because of that performance and you sort of just let him go? Because I guess it's so hard to pick, right? Because it changes from really game to game or quarter to quarter.
Yeah, really a tough one. I think Peatling getting subbed out really helped him here. So once Peatling was out of the game, he was the guy to move into the midfield. And he just moved way higher up the ground, started getting some marks and stuff, way closer to what he was doing at the start of the year. So yeah, it's a weird one. If maybe Peatling doesn't pull up next week, or you think he's going to play more midfield, I can see him scoring really well in the last 2 weeks. But when he's playing forward, it's just not a fantasy friendly role. So he's the kind of guy that plays a bit more deep forward, which you just don't want to see. So yeah, tricky one to read. I thought, I traded him a few weeks ago. I thought I was into the top 50 this week when Rankin was on like 20 something at half time, and then he puts up a 90-point second half, and all of a sudden I'm sort of scratching my head wondering why I traded him out. So just another example of those sort of F7 to F10 guys. It's impossible to split them at the moment, and they're not that much worse than F6. So if you've got them, you probably just hold and upgrade elsewhere.
Yeah, exactly. He played very, very well, but just one of those ones that I'm probably not going to go back, but I hope he keeps playing well, because if he's playing well, it means the Crows are going well. Move to the next player, which is, of course, it's going really slow here. So Riley O'Brien with a 103 and a good matchup there. Lairdy with his customary 98 that he gets pretty much every week. Tim Kelly with the 90, so back-to-back good weeks for him there. Tom McCarthy, 88, played a midfield role this week and looked pretty good with the 14 CBAs. Had 7 kick-ins as well, so maybe something to look at in moving forward. If he's going to be getting a midfield role, then getting some kick-ins, that's a pretty juicy role to have there. So if you've got him on the bench, Lemon, do you just hold him there, or do you think if you can cash him down to get, I guess, maybe a couple of upgrades over the next few weeks, or get him up to that 23rd premium, would you be doing that, or do you think McCarthy might be able to stay?
I mean, yeah, the role was incredible. As you said, CBAs plus kick-ins is just, you almost never see it in fantasy. Maybe Nick Dacos does it a little bit. I think he's their best player. So I'm not surprised that he's around the ball. I wouldn't be surprised if he stays around the ball. If you have him, I actually traded him this week to Jeremy Cameron, which was fine. But if you have him, you could theoretically, loop him or put him on field. But I think he's got 2 tougher matchups. So Western Bulldogs and Sydney. We don't really know what that role is, if he's going to stay in the midfield or if he's going to go back to defense. So yeah, I wouldn't put him on field with any massive confidence, but if that role sticks around, he could be a 90+ guy for sure.
Yeah, exactly. And 88 against the Crows, a pretty good score there. And then I guess to finish off with the games recap, a few people went to some Adelaide forwards this week. So if you went for Riley Thilthorpe, 80's not too bad. He saved obviously late, and I think Duggan's going to be on a bit of a holiday because that was a pretty nasty hit when he hit Thilthorpe in the head. And safe to say, I was saying a few profanities, regardless if it was his 200th game, and he's normally a pretty clean and good player. I wasn't very happy with that hit because I thought he'd knocked him out, but thankfully Thilthorpe came back on and scored an 80. And then the other ones, if you went there, unfortunately, all failed. Alex Neil-Bullen, 55. Dan Curtin, 55. and Ben Key's 43. So if you went for any of those few forwards, they didn't get it done, unfortunately. I think it was a surprising game for the Crows. I certainly didn't think a lot of people thought it was going to go that way. So that is it from the games recap. So we'll just do a couple of questions because I do like a couple of them here. So we'll just answer these. Eskimo Brother 77. So I believe that's Lockin. He's doing quite well. Into 73rd overall. Who's the best target for the last 2 weeks, currently running a 23rd preem? So I guess, Lem, it's quite hard, right? It's teams have got a lot of these players, but if there was someone that a lot of people might be targeting that's got a good 2 week stretch, is there anyone that sort of comes to mind? Obviously, it's pretty tricky answering on a Sunday night, and we haven't probably had the time to look, but anyone that sort of piques your interest?
Yeah, I haven't, to be honest, I haven't really looked at this week's trades yet because, I normally sit down on a Monday, Tuesday and look at that. It's hard to offer impartial advice because I'm just behind him. So, I think he might be one of the coaches that I'm trying to catch as well. But I definitely say, you're just looking for, you're not looking for a 1 week hit, you're looking for a 2 week hit. So, look at the 2 week fixture, try to find someone that could maybe be a, top 3 forward, midfielder, defender, whatever it is for the next 2 weeks, and then look to upgrade elsewhere next week. I still think 1 week plays, it's just not my style. Maybe some other coaches will be doing it, but I don't think I'll be doing that.
Yeah, and I agree because like looking at even the fixtures here, a lot of teams have got one good matchup and then a tough matchup. Like for example, you might look at like a Zach Butters. He's got probably tag coming this week, then a great matchup in the final week. Then you look at people that have got a good matchup this week, they'll have got a tougher matchup the week after. So it's quite hard to go through there. But Lockie, hopefully we'll go through a heap of those options on Tuesday night when we've had a little bit more time to go there. But that's for sure. But no, congrats on being 73rd, mate. It's a very, very good effort. Orify, what happens for fantasy when Gold Coast play twice in round 24? That game just doesn't even count. That's fantasy for us finishes on the Sunday night after Brisbane Hawthorn. Gold Coast Essendon has got no bearing on fantasy whatsoever, so don't even worry about that. That won't matter. The only thing that might matter is if Gold Coast, they're not going to rest people in the final game. They're going to rest people probably for that Essendon game, so it's not even going to matter from even that standpoint. So I wouldn't even look at that either. Stinger Fusion, highest priority to trade out: Ash, Curtin, Petrarca, or Josh Dacos. So Lemon, I think we're crossing out Ash and probably Josh Dacos. Is it one of Curtin or Petrarca that go for you from those four?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think, as you said, the other two look all right. Curtin or Petrarca, are they similar price? They might be similar price, so maybe you can just pick between them. Yeah, either one. I'd be happy to get rid of both, to be honest.
Yeah. IT saying here, Ump's getting the Crows over the line. Hard to do at Optus. Mate, don't get me started on that. Crows have been stitched up plenty of times. If they can get they can get a bit of luck going their way, I'll still come back to that bloody Ben Keys goal. So yeah, I think that it's fine. But it was quite funny. I remember there was a Saligo dangerous tackle that wasn't a dangerous tackle, and the crowd weren't too happy with that one. So I reckon we'll probably wrap up there. Actually, what's it? Keaton says, had a cracking week for once, scored a 24.93, took Naz VC, missed out on points because Dawson was my captain if I didn't take it. It was still the right call, Keaton, right? 118, you're taking that, right? Like Lemon, you're probably in the scenario where if you get a 118, is that still a score that I know that 147 was a score you probably missed out on, right? But a few people would have taken on and went to a Brody Grundy who got an 83. So are you still more likely to take a 118? I guess it changed. I remember you chatted about this on one of your pods. It does change week to week. It's not like a flat line, but more often not. If it's over 115, are you more likely to take that than not?
Yeah, so as you said, I like to adjust my my line for the VCC depending on who I'm rolling into. So yeah, but as we saw this week, if you went into Jordan Dawson, you made points. If you went into maybe a Ron Marshall, you made points. But a lot of the other popular captain options, you actually lost points. So don't just if you were going into Dawson, sure, this week you lost a few points, but normally a 120, 118, 120, you have to be pretty confident that they're going 120 plus to say no on that. So I still think it was the right call. I took a 120 this week. I was maybe thinking about going to Rowan Marshall. I lost a few points there, but I was also thinking about going to an Asaya. Would have lost points. So yeah, 120, 118, 120 is pretty hard to say no to.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know that we both took the Baz VC with the 120 as well. So yeah, we definitely were taking that. And I'll go final one here because John, I think he said who goes first out, Petrarca, Curtin, and Mills. I think we're chatting about that before. Probably one of those forwards, probably looking at Petrarca or Curtin there. But Ace of Trades says who to get rid of out of Brayshaw, Merritt, Butters, or Green. Do you? I know that Lemon, you normally you sort of hard to say when you can't see the rest of the team. But if you had to sort of pick one that you probably want to trade out of the four, is there one that sort of sticks out to you?
I mean, I think the decision's been made for us with the Merritt injury. So
it's
already tough for him, with the tags coming his way and Eston playing terribly. But even if he plays, he's still got that fracture in his wrist. I think, it's going to be tough for him to tackle with a fracture. So he might be an interesting one. He might come back the next week, but I don't know if I'd want him on field with a sort of fractured wrist. So yeah, I think that's an easy one there.
Yeah, and then a Cooper Lord tag probably as well to finish off the year because Carlton and Aston will want to win that game because I think they'll want to both end off the year on a high. And then final one, I'll answer this one here from Sean. He says, do I trade Petrarca over McCarthy, whoever holds the 23rd loop option? I think you do. I think McCarthy, we saw midfield kickouts. That's a decent role. Petrarca's role is just not great. And if you can use Petrarca as a loop in different positions, I'd trade him up to someone. So, yep, I like that one there, Sean. Cool. That'll wrap us up for a round review. But as always, I guess Sunday night, Lemon, it's hard to say what you're doing with trades. But is there have you got maybe a thinking about what players you may be looking to trade out? You don't have to obviously tell us. Well, feel free to say if you might be looking at some players, but if not, if you want to keep cards close to your chest because you're the top 100, feel free. But sort of anything you want to share with the listeners?
I'll probably I can't tell you what I'm going to do because I haven't looked at it yet. But I'll probably be trying to loophole a bit this week. I've got the 23rd premium now, and I've got a bit of cash, so I'll probably be getting a look at a few scores and then making my trade in. I think that's how I'll try and set it up. I'm not exactly sure on fixtures, but if you can get a look at one of these players you're not sure on, get a look at them first, and then decide if you want to take that or then you upgrade there. That's certainly the way I'll be doing it because I haven't always done that in the past years, and it cost me points. So now is the good time to do it. We see these rookies; they're putting up 20s, 30s, 40s. You're not missing much by avoiding an emergency on them. You're probably better off risking a donut if someone's a late withdrawal. So that's where I'll be going. What about you, mate?
Yeah, well, I just when we were talking just before, I'd had some trades that I would have really liked to do, and it was going Ashton Moyer down to a basement and going Petrarca up to Errol Goulden, 1K short. So
always
the way. So I could potentially trade out of a Callum Mills and get Errol Goulden if I'd like to get Errol this week. So I do like Errol of the players I don't have. It's funny though, all the players I don't have that I want are all a lot more expensive than what I'd like. So maybe that's just a case of it's a Moyer down or a Hasty down and bank a bit of cash and go like a Petrarca to a Matt Kennedy. I don't have Kennedy yet, so that would be a trade I wouldn't mind doing, and then moving maybe one of those North Melbourne players to a 23rd, and then I'll trade one of them out maybe for the final round to an error or something like that. That might be the plan there. But I'll have to have a bit of a think about what I do look at doing in terms this week. So, but beautiful. That'll wrap us up for a round review. So, Lemon, mate, thank you very much for jumping on for chat. Always love chatting fantasy with you, mate. Where can the people find you across the socials? And I know there's only a couple weeks to go, but where can people get in touch with you to jump on the Lemon League? Maybe not only for this year, but maybe for next year as well.
Yeah, thanks, mate. Always good to chat. People can find me at lemon_DT. If you want to check out the podcast that I do, it's available through Patreon and then through Spotify or whatever you listen to. It's called the Lemon League at lemon_league on X as well. You can hit us up, and we'll be finishing at the end of the year. But next year got a few plans to make it bigger and better. Hopefully go around again and hopefully help a few coaches get into the top 100 or PBs or win your leagues, whatever you're trying to do. So we've had a few in the top 100 this year, and hopefully maybe even top 10, top 20. I think a few of them. So it's an exciting time. Good luck to everyone for the last 2 weeks though. It's enjoy.
Beautiful. Thank you, mate. Yep. No, I would highly recommend the Lemon League. As Lemon always says, the fantasy podcast where they don't tell you who to pick, they teach you how to pick them. And certainly helped me a lot the last really since I had that tough start, really knuckling down and getting the smarter trades done, and that certainly helped with the back half of the year. So thank you, mate, for all your advice and stuff, and loving the pod this season. You can find me at BAILSDT across the socials, and us at AFL Fantasy Fans on X. We'll be back with a special pod tomorrow, which I'm about to record actually with friend of the show, Liam from Free Kick, and Tom. Obviously, we're going to be chatting some AFLW fantasy. So if you guys haven't registered, make sure you do. Starts on Thursday this upcoming week, and it should be a cracking season. Lemon, just before we go, you jumping on AFLW fantasy this season?
I am. I've got a team and looking forward to it. It's always good fun. Definitely encourage people to put a team. I'm going away for 2 weeks right at the start of the season, so it's going to be tricky to do some trades in those early weeks. But I'm hoping I'll get some reception and be able to keep the team going. So it should be a fun year to play, I think.
No, beautiful. Yes, no, make sure you get around it starting soon, and we'll be recording that very shortly. So that comes out tomorrow, and we'll be back on Tuesday. Sorry, not Thursday. Tuesday for our Q&A there as well. And no Thursday night footy. It's an extra day to mull over trades and prelims. So good luck, everyone, this week. Happy trading. Hope you can get through to your grand finals, prelims, whatever you're doing there, or rank goals and everything like that. We'll chat to you guys later in the week. So make sure you do smash a like on the video, subscribe to our channel, and if you are listening on the pod, 5-star running and review would be very much appreciated. And we'll catch you guys on Tuesday for a Q&A. So thanks, everyone. Have a good night. See ya.